Freshers Week at uni is known for being wild, but mine got scary. My dorm was all male, and in typical freshers style, we got drinking as soon as we met on the first day. Everyone seemed pretty normal at first, but there was this one guy, Jason from Ireland, who quickly started to get loud and intense as he got drunk. His eyes took on a darker, more intense look. We were playing drinking games for a bit, then we made our way into town. At the end of the night, we were walking back. Now, it's pretty common to steal things in Freshers Week. Nothing major, just silly stuff. One guy had a glass that he stole from a bar. I was carrying a traffic cone, and another guy had an Italian flag that he found somewhere. The only person who didn't have anything was Jason, and we were all teasing him about it. Then we're walking down the street when, out of nowhere, Jason smashes a car window and stole the air freshener from the vehicle. We were all like, what the hell, and started running back to the uni halls. Jason was running too and laughing. When we got back to our dorm, we were all telling him that what he did wasn't cool. He was getting really aggressive and saying he didn't care. We were all drunk and it was like 5 a.m. at this point, so we just left it and went to bed. The next morning, we were all hungover, chatting in the common room. When Jason came in, he seemed like a normal person again. We reminded him about the car, and he agreed that it was a bit out of hand. Anyway, we all went out again that night. We were all drunk at some freshers event. Jason grabbed some girl's hand as she walks by, trying to stop her and say hi. She told him hi, but to let go, but he didn't. And he pulled her in, and she said let go again. Then we all said let go, and he did, but with a kind of shove. When we got outside, I told him that he was being a dick, and he got in my face, squared up to me, and was trying to get me to fight him. The others broke it up. When we got back home, we all went straight to bed except Jason, who stayed up playing music really loud and still drinking. When I woke up the next morning, he was still up from the night before. Looking back now, he was probably on cocaine or something, but I didn't know that at the time. As soon as he saw me, he pinned me against the wall by my throat and told me not to ever call him an idiot again. It was pretty scary because I was the only other person awake and he looked absolutely wired. I said okay and he let me go. He must have been up all night brooding about that. Anyway, I managed to avoid seeing him for the rest of that day and night. They all went out again, but I went and hung out with some other people. The next day when I saw the others, they told me Jason had been doing the same kind of stuff, being hands-on with girls and aggressive with guys the night before. Things finally came to a head on the following night. We all went on a night out again and got really drunk. Halfway through the night, we lost Jason. We didn't think anything of it and carried on partying. We got back to our halls at about 2 a.m. and I immediately passed out in bed. A few hours later, we were woken by the sound of a scream, a girl's scream, coming from Jason's room. I got up and went to investigate. All of us were outside his room and knocked on his door. We were all still disorientated from the alcohol and the fact that it was about 4 a.m. After hammering on the door, Jason opened it. He was in his boxers, and there was a girl half-dressed in the room. We asked what the screaming was, and the girl said that Jason had tried to force himself on her after she said she wasn't going to sleep with him. Apparently, he'd covered her mouth with his hand, and she'd bitten it and then managed to scream. We called the security, and they came up. One of them took Jason away while the other asked the poor girl what had happened. We never saw Jason again. Presumably he was kicked out by the uni. I don't know if the police got involved, but the dorm was definitely a lot better without him. back in my first year of uni, I lived in one of the nicer apartments in the halls of residence on campus with 3 close friends. We each had our own dorm room and we shared a common room and a small kitchenette. Standard uni stuff, really. Now, our friend Jenny came from a rich family and was better off than the rest of us. She bumped into an old childhood friend, and within the first few weeks, they decided to get a place together off campus, so the university quickly assigned us a replacement roommate. Little did we know this new addition would change our uni experience forever. Our new guy's name was Gerard. He appeared to be an ordinary guy at first glance, with short, curly black hair, well-kept beard, and glasses. He was slightly on the shorter side, but had a friendly demeanor. Gerard was assigned to the dorm room farthest from the common room area, which happened to be adjacent to mine. In the beginning, Gerard kept to himself, and it took a while for us to have a proper conversation. Then one evening, as I returned from a lecture, I found him in the common room looking unusually anxious. I asked him if he was okay, and he confided in me that he had a condition that makes him sleepwalk and experience nightmares, which caused him to talk or yell in his sleep. It was the reason he'd moved from his old dorm. He wanted us to be aware of this so we wouldn't be alarmed if it happened. To be honest, it felt like a lot that he was unloading on me. I haven't had one normal conversation with him, and now he was telling me all this. I texted everyone else in our dorm asking if Gerard had shared this information with them, but they all responded with confusion, unaware of his sleep disorder. We kind of laughed about it, but I couldn't shake the feeling in my gut that something more than that was off. A few nights later, my unease turned into full-blown discomfort. I was awakened in the middle of the night by a knock on my door. I asked who it was, but there was no response. I figured it must have been Gerard, but it was unsettling nonetheless. When I questioned my friends the next day, both of them denied knocking on my door, and they all thought it was hilarious how freaked out I was. As days passed, Gerard's sleep disturbances became more frequent. One night I heard footsteps in the common area, and once again a knock on my door. This time I decided not to respond, convinced it was Gerard. I messaged the group chat, which Gerard wasn't in, at 2 a.m., telling them of the incident, but none of them heard anything. It was apparent that Gerard's room being next to mine amplified the disturbance. I finally mustered the courage to confront Gerard about it. He admitted to sleepwalking, but assured me it was harmless. I said it was annoying because he was waking me up. Anyway, time passed and I lost track of how many days went by without any disturbances. And then, just when I thought things might have settled down, something bizarre happened. I was awoken by strange noises in my room one night and saw Gerard standing in the corner, facing the wall, muttering to himself. The hair on my neck stood on end as I called his name. He turned toward me and repeated, "Open the door, open the door." It was deeply unsettling. His eyes seemed vacant, as if he were looking through me. I noticed a disturbing smile on his face, and he let out a creepy, soft laugh before leaving my room. I debated whether I should wake him up for a second, but I knew nothing about sleep disorders. But my thoughts were broken when Gerard began banging on a roommate's door, screaming, "Open the door, open the door, open the door," in a manic voice that was completely terrifying. Everyone was awake now, and we all rushed to him, trying to wake him up. All of this was so loud that the commotion had apparently caught the attention of campus police, and they arrived shortly after. We had no choice but to explain the situation to the officers. Gerard spoke to them for a while, now awake, before returning to his room. That night I made sure to lock my door securely. The next morning, Gerard had vanished. His room was empty, as if he had never been there. I couldn't shake the feeling that something deeply troubling was going on in his mind. While I might not have understood the full extent of his condition, it was clear that he needed help. I was 20 when I went to uni. I had a girlfriend at the time too. In my section of halls, there was me, two other guys, and two girls. And my girlfriend and I used to see each other once or twice a month. She'd come up and see me, or I'd go back to my hometown and see her. She came to visit me a few weeks after Freshers Week. Over that first weekend, she met everyone else on the floor. Of the two guys, she thought one of them was nice, but she found the other one, let's call him Greg, to be weird. There was something about him that creeped her out. Now, Greg was quiet and a little bit intense, but I said he was probably just an introvert and getting used to being away from home. Anyway, time went on and she kept visiting, sometimes spending a full week with me. One day when she got home after a visit, she messaged me asking if she had left some of her underwear in my room, a pink pair of knickers. I had a look but couldn't find them and said they'd turn up, but they never did. The next time she came to stay, I left her to go to work because I had a part-time bar job. While I was out, she said she was watching a film in the communal living room with the lights off. About an hour into the film, she caught the reflection in the window of something in the room, so she turned around and saw the guy, Greg, stood outside the room with the door ajar, watching her. It made her jump and she gasped. Then he just turned and went back to his room. She switched the film off and went back to my room and waited for me. My girlfriend asked the other girls on my floor if they thought Greg was creepy, and they both said they thought he was. One of them said they'd caught him watching her one night too. We couldn't really do anything about it though because he hadn't actually done anything wrong, and we were too embarrassed to say anything. At the end of the year, I was packing up my stuff when I found something small tucked into the shelf opposite my bed that I keep my books on. It was a tiny square thing with a circle in the middle. It wasn't mine, and it definitely wasn't there when I moved in. I could tell it was a piece of tech, but I'd never seen it before. So I Googled it and found out that it was a pinhole camera, a tiny camera that can easily be hidden in a room. I felt sick. All I could think of was that Greg must have planted it there. But when and how? Had I left my door unlocked at some point? Had he seen some of our most private moments? And how long had it been there? My mind was racing with questions. I debated whether to tell my girlfriend about it, but eventually I did, and she freaked out, which is understandable. I guess I should have trusted her instincts from day one. I try not to think about it, but it still pops in my head from time to time. It's a very strange feeling when you realize you've been spied on.